This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
As followers of Jesus, in whom all things were made, we acknowledge the Darug people as the traditional custodians of the country on where this podcast is recorded. We recognise their continuing connection to the land and waters and thank them for protecting this land and its ecosystems since time immemorial. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and we extend that respect to all First Nations peoples listening today. Warning: this episode contains mentions of suicide and mental illness. Listener discretion is advised. And if you need help, Lifeline is available on 13 11 14.
If I'm to accept what he just said to me, my body is going to react to that and I will die. Do you understand that? I do not accept it. I don't want to accept it. I'm going to do my bit. You guys talk to the nurses, do whatever. I don't want to know. Whatever tablets you give me, whatever, I don't want to know. Let me do what I do best. And that first night, I closed my eyes and I visualized I was completely healed. But the good thing is, George, what I did was, in the Bible, it says, by his stripes you are healed.
I'm Georgia, and welcome to Finding Hope, the podcast that reminds you of the good in the world. Each episode tells a story of someone who has found real hope in challenging times and made the world a better place. Episode 42, Peter de Prinzio, Part 2. On paper, Peter de Prinzio's trials and tribulations are enough to make anyone fall apart. But Peter doesn't see it that way. He sees everything he's been through as another opportunity to show the world who he really is, someone who never gives up. If you haven't listened to part 1 of Peter's story yet, go back and do that. It's on the previous episode before going any further. To recap last episode, we left off with Peter moving from Newcastle to Sydney after 2 years of jail time for fraudulent financial advice and a failed business venture where he lost $80,000 in loans. Little did Peter know, his trials were just beginning. Let's get back into it. Peter got a job in finance in Sydney, and bit by bit he started paying back the $80,000 he'd borrowed for his failed clothing line. And he eventually paid it back in full.
So I moved to a place called Mount Lewis, which is in Bankstown. And I used to go to Bankstown Square every day for coffee. And there was a girl that used to work upstairs at Witchery. And she used to check me out. I used to sort of check her out, sort of thing. She's cool. Obviously, she must have said, he's pretty cool. And, we started to talk. We went for coffee and that. And, so I started to date her and we eventually got married in 99. And we had a child in 2004, a little beautiful girl. But in the meantime, my father got diagnosed with cancer. And, so I remember it was actually Boxing Day. I was in Newcastle, went to visit him. And there was myself, my mum, my wife at the time, and my little daughter. She was, I forget what she was, about 5 months old. And we said goodbye, Dad. I said, Dad, we'll be back in about 2 days. I just got to go sell my property, which I've sold in Ashfield, but I'll sign some paperwork and I'll be back. Don't worry. When we left, I got a phone call from my mother that afternoon, and she said, you know what your dad said when you left? I said, what did he say? He said, I'm not going to see my son, my daughter-in-law, or my granddaughter anymore. Mum said, John, they're coming back in 2 days. What do you mean you're not going to see him? And he kept saying, no, I'm not going to see them. So that was about 5:30 that afternoon. About 8:30 that night, I got a call. My wife answered, and my wife looked at me and she goes, Peter, you need to get back to Newcastle. Your dad's not doing too well, and they want you to go back. She couldn't come because the baby was asleep. So I get in my car and I drove back to Newcastle. It was about 9. What they didn't tell me, the dad had already passed. So when I got there, I knew there was all my family were there, and I walked in and the hospital, and he was still laying there. My mum was crying, and all my uncles, aunties, and cousins, and I looked at my dad and I thought, wow, he's my best friend, someone who would drive from Newcastle, where they lived, to Muswellbrook, which is about 3 hours or so, 3-4 hours, every fortnight to come and see his son behind bars. And I never got a chance to thank him, never got a chance to say goodbye to him.
Peter couldn't seem to catch a break. After his father died, he found out that his wife was having an affair.
I find out that my wife at the time was, having an affair with her boss, that I got her a job at Bank West with her boss, state manager. And again, because it's legal stuff, I'm not going to say too much, but she pretty much said, for me to walk away. And I went and stayed with my uncles and aunties out west here in Sydney, and she sent me the divorce papers. But I haven't seen my daughter, Alessia, at the time. She was 4, and she's now 18, so I haven't seen her for 14 years. So she took off. We didn't go through the courts. That's why people ask me, but no, we didn't go through the courts.
Peter soon spiralled in a big way. He was diagnosed with clinical depression, and then a few months later, pretty much hit rock bottom.
I remember March 2008. I said, enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. And I drove my car to St. Mary's out west here in Sydney, in the main strip. I parked it. It was about just after midday. I wrote a suicide note out to my family, asking them to forgive me and asking, and explaining why I was doing this. And I put it down next to me in the car, a photo of my daughter, put it next to me, and then I took about 74 tablets. And I remember that I put my seat down in the car, so I lay back, and I was looking up in the roof of the seating of the car, and I said this. I said, God, I know this is wrong. As someone who believes, as a Christian, this is wrong, but I can't stand and bear the pain anymore, the emotional pain. I can't do this anymore. I said, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Now, I think 20 minutes went by. I felt 20 minutes, and I started to feel a tingling in my body. And I knew then, I thought, okay, I'm about to go. And at that point, I did get scared. I realised then I'm I'm facing death here. And that's all I remember, Georgia. And then I can hear this. And I opened my eyes, and there's a policeman at the window of my car. And he said to me, put the window down. And I looked at him, he's going, put the window down. So as I'm still laying back, I put the window down. And he's standing there, and he put his hand on my right shoulder. And he goes, how are you doing, sir? And I remember saying to him after he asked me that, I'm doing okay. He goes, are you sure? I said, yes. He goes, good, I want you to promise me something. I said, okay. He said, promise me from today onwards that you keep smiling. I said, okay. He goes, no, you're going to promise me that you're going to be happy and smile from today onwards. I said, okay, yeah, I promise, sir. Because I'm thinking he's a cop, I don't want to get in trouble. And at that point, I felt like he squeezed it a bit tighter. He goes, so you'll promise me that you're going to do that? I said, yes, I will. He said, good, you have a nice day, sir. Now, he walked away, I saw him get in the car and take off. Now, here's the interesting part. Ready? I rolled my seat back up. I looked at the time, because when I parked there, it was about 12:20. I looked at the time, it was 4:30. So pretty much 4 hours had gone by. I thought it was 20 minutes. People say to me, did you die and come back? I don't know. But I believe that policeman was the guardian angel that had to wake me up. Because let me tell you, next to me, there was a suicide note. There's a photo of my daughter. There was empty drug containers. And my eyes were black, like literally black, because of the drugs. And not once he asked me for my ID, my name, nothing except promise me that you'll be happy, promise me that I would smile from today onwards. That's all I remember at that point. Again, I woke up and I found myself at Nepean Hospital out west, near Penrith, and they had pumped my stomach out. Now, what happened was, I'm thinking, how did I get here? Apparently, I drove my car from Queen Street to Saddington Street, which is, I don't know, maybe 2 kilometres or so away, through traffic lights, went up the driveway, and what happened was I got out of the car and I walked up to the front door and I knocked on my uncle's door where I was staying, and he opened the door and he saw my black eyes. He thought I was in a fight. So he pulled me in. He goes, sit down. My auntie, as she looks out, notices that the door's still open in my car. She goes, So she walks down to shut the door. But she sees the suicide note, the empty drug containers. So she's grabbed it all, come upstairs and said, I think he tried to commit suicide. So they called the doctor. The doctor called an ambulance and picked me up and took me to Nepean. How did I drive there? Don't remember it. I was off my nut because part of the tablets I took was 15 sleeping tablets. 15. So I was floating. I spent 2 weeks there, and the day I was discharged, the specialist came up to me and he said, look, son, I don't know if you believe in a higher being, but you should thank your lucky stars because you should be dead. So he said to me, when we pumped your stomach, you should be dead. Miracle, he said to me. So that night when I was discharged, I went home, had a shower, and I walked upstairs. I got on my knees. I said, God, you kept me alive for a reason. Thank you. Please open the doors. You do your bit. I will do my bit. I need to get back to what my purpose was. And that's how it all started. So I did.
Peter started to find his feet again. He got a new job in finance and started earning a living for himself. He became resilient despite his trials and developed his trademark never give up attitude. But in 2014, another almost impossible obstacle was put in his place.
2014, I had a sore back, and I played football all my life, soccer, because that's what Italians do. And what happened was I found out that I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a bone marrow cancer. There's no cure. It was incurable. At Westmead Cancer Unit, when the oncologist came that night, there was him and 2 doctors, and they had their paperwork, and they said, you have multiple myeloma, and this is how long you got to live. They said, look, anything from 6 months, it could be 12 months, maybe longer, depending with the treatment. But in the meantime, you won't be able to walk. I was on morphine at the time but what happens with multiple myeloma, it's a bone marrow cancer, it starts to eat at your bones. So my pelvis and my legs, and I had lesions at every part of my body except my hands and feet. Lesions everywhere. They said, they went through it all. And I remember I was laying there and I'm listening to this, my family all around me, cousins all there. And he said, is there anything you would like to ask or you would like to say? And I said, actually, there is, doctor. With all due respect, I do want to say something. He goes, yeah, sure. What is it? I said, look, with all due respect, see that piece of paper? It's not going to happen. And he looked at me, he goes, sorry, what do you mean? I said, I'll tell you what I mean. I said, first, my God, much bigger than that piece of paper. 2, I'm going to use visualization, power of prayer, power of positive thinking. I'm going to do everything that I'm going to heal myself through my mind. That's all I said to him. And he looked at me and he smiled. I was on morphine. So he's thinking, this guy's off his nut. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Little did he know, I knew what I was talking about. So he said, I'll see you in the morning. You get some rest. I'll come back. They left. All my family, they were having a go at me. They're saying to me, are you stupid? Are you crazy? Do you understand? Like, he's the doctor. He's the specialist. And I said, stop, everyone. Just shut up, I said to them. Please, just be quiet. I said, let me tell you something. If I'm to accept what he just said to me, my body is going to react to that and I will die. Do you understand that? I do not accept it. I don't want to accept it. I'm going to do my bit. You guys talk to the nurses, do whatever. I don't want to know. Whatever tablets you give me, whatever, I don't want to know. Let me do what I do best. And that first night, I closed my eyes and I just visualized that I'd be on stage one day being a speaker. I closed my eyes and I visualized I was completely healed. But the good thing is, George, what I did was, in the Bible, it says, by his stripes you are healed. Right? That's what it says. By his stripe you are healed. And I thought to myself, okay, it doesn't say you should be, could be, might be. It says you are. You are. So I believed it. I'm healed. I've just got to make it happen. I've got to make the miracle manifest. And I think a lot of people, don't understand what faith means and what the power of prayer means. It means that you ask, and if you believe, which Jesus said, if you ask in prayer and you believe in totally with your heart, it shall be done. And I believed that I was already healed. I just had to have the total faith to make it happen. And so within 6 months, December 15th, they asked me for a blood test. And I hate needles. Trust me, I hate it. I was going to get 3 or 4 a day. So I went for a blood test. 2 days later, they called me. They said, can you come back and do another one? I said, what for? They said something went wrong. Nothing come up. And that was it. So not only was I then clean or cleared and healed, which I truly believe, through God and everything else I used, but I played soccer and I'm still playing soccer. So there was no operation. It's been over 8 years and I'm sharing the story. Even my oncologist calls me Mr. Miracle Man. He can't. I said to him, do you understand? Do you have anything that you like to think about or want to ask me why I'm healed? He doesn't know. Did I have treatment? Yeah. But I'm a true believer. Attitude is the most important thing. Attitude is the most important thing in anything in life, Georgia. Anything we face, any obstacle, any challenge, your attitude has got to be, I can do this. Because David and Goliath, remember, David was told no one was ever be able to beat Goliath, ever. But he said, I will. I can. And he did. And everything in life is a Goliath. I faced so many Goliaths in my life, but I slayed each one of them. And that's why today, my brand of Never Give Up, or NVGVUP, is that you never give up no matter what. God made me go through 39 years, my apprenticeship, to do what I do today, and that's to change people's lives. But I had to go through that. But you know what? He made me get through every single obstacle and mountain, because he said to me, I'm going to be with you no matter what. I love you unconditionally. Go away and be happy. And he's used me.
Thank you to Peter Prinzio for sharing his incredible story. To find out more about Peter and his work, including his upcoming speaking engagements, you can visit his website at peterdeprinzio.com.au or check out his Facebook page. And that information is in the show notes. I'm Georgia, and thank you for listening to this episode of Finding Hope. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, and also share it with your friends. That is really helpful. And if you or someone you know has a story of hope to share and you would like to be interviewed for this podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the Finding Hope page at hopepodcasts.com.au. For now, I'll leave you with this verse. For no word from God will ever fail. Luke chapter 1, verse 37. Catch you next time.
This is a Hope 1032 production. Thanks for listening.